Good morning, everyone. My name is Busari Akim, and you are welcome to my channel. This is a channel where you'll be learning digital skills required for developers, for data analysts, database management administrator, and so many other people are going to benefit from this. For today, what we're going to discuss today is SQL, which is an acronym that stands for Structural Query Language. And today's lecture is going to be purely practical. If you need to learn more theoretically about structural query language, I have some of the videos that I released earlier before this one that talk so much about it. What is SQL? Which are the important command in the SQL? Where do we use, where and when to use the SQL, and who are those that need the SQLs? So all these things I discussed in those previous videos, but this class is going to be practical, as in fully practical. So we are not going to discuss some of those things again here, because I believe you have a basic understanding of what SQL is, and you know where to use it and when to use it. You also know those that are required to use SQL. So in today's class, what we're going to do is going to be practical, and the requirements for you to be able to follow this video and enjoying it is just a computer. Once you have your laptop or your desktop, you're good to go. And then you need to also have your management SQL Studio installed on it by installing Microsoft SQL Server. A minimum of 2012 is required, but at least you can use the updated or the latest version or any other one you choose. You can also use any package or any other software where you can run your query. It's still going to work for you. So this is the requirement for you to be able to follow this class. And who are the target audience for this class? If you are a data analyst, you are good to go. If you are a software developer, you can follow me. If you are a database administrator, you can also learn from this. And even if you are not any of these ones that I mentioned, or you work or handle data on daily basis, you also need this video. So our target for this is to discuss practically the basic SQL skills are required for somebody to start with. So what is SQL? Said SQL is an acronym that stands for Structural Query Language, and it is a powerful programming language that is used in communicating and manipulating record in the database, such as retrieval of information from the database, insert or add new record into the database, updating an existing record in the database, or delete permanently the record or records in the database. So we're going to see how we're going to do all this practically. Okay. So the learning outcomes for this tutorial, for this specific class, is to learn how to create database and manipulate the records in it using query. And secondly, we're going to learn how to create a database and manipulate the contents in the database using the graphical user interface. After this particular tutorial, our next tutorial will be on how to use AI in doing all these things we've mentioned earlier. So stay with me and let's move into the practical class. But please, before we move into the practical class, do encourage me by subscribe to my channel so that I can be able to do more, share my videos, and click and click like, and then I will be glad to see your comments below so that I can perfect or do better than what you are saying at the moment. But please don't forget to subscribe for further notification on other courses that we are going to work on. This YouTube channel is not limited to only SQL. There are other skills you can benefit from here. You can learn about coding. You can learn about database, data analysis, and so many other things. Even the survey creations, you can watch all those videos on my channel. So let's move into the practical class. Thanks for subscribing to my channel. So what we are going to use here is what we call SQL Server Management Studio, and I'm going to launch my SQL Server Management Studio. So how do you launch your Server Management Studio? You can come to this place and search. So let's launch the SQL and start the practical class properly. So for launching, you can go to search here and search for SQL Server Management Studio. You click on it. It's going to launch the Server Management Studio for you. And then there are two ways you can connect. You can do Windows authentication or you do SQL Server authentication. So for this purpose, if you do server authentication, it's going to ask you for login details. But for the purpose of this lecture, we're going to do Windows authentication and we're going to click connect. So we have connected, and then by the left hand side, I'm going to say Object Explorer. And in case after I log in, I couldn't see that, I can just come to the view, click Object Explorer, and I'll have it here. And if you look at here, you see database security and all that. But for this purpose of this lecture, we're going to demonstrate how you can create database using the query and the GUI and others. So to create, I came here and I click new query, and it opens this page for me. So here I can do whatever I need to do, and I can, give the command and issue the command to whatever query I want to write. I can write it here. So let's create database by writing the query. So we're going to use a create statement to create our database. What are we creating? Create database. And you can see it's not case sensitive. You can type it in capital letter, you can type it in proper case or lowercase or anyhow you want it. So what is the name? What am I creating? I want to create, I use create command. What am I creating database? And what do I want to name my database? I want to call it employee DB. So I use employee DB. So I can, employee and the database are two different words. So I can join them together by not leaving space, or I use underscore to join the two of them. So what I want to do is I just want to create the database, and I want to call it employee DB. So I use create database for me and call it employee DB. So I will execute this guy. So you can see the command is successful. That means our database has been created. So for me to see the database, I can come to the plus sign here and click it, and I'll see it open, and I'll see my employee DB. It has been created for us. Now, for me to create any object inside this database, I have to make this database as an active. And I can do that by simply come to this drop down, the GUI, and select this employee DB and make it active. And I can also use commands to do that. Assuming we have the master here, but I want to use the query to do that. So all I need to do is to say use employee DB. I want to use the employee DB. So I'll use this and I'll execute. And you see here will be changed to employee DB. So it's making my DB active now. So inside this now we can create whatever object, be it table, field, or store procedures. So for the purpose of this lecture, we're going to create table inside this. So I'll use command create again. Create, what am I creating this time around? Table. So I'll say create table. What do I want to call my table? I want to call my table employee TB. That's employee table. So if I like, I can introduce underscore in between them. I can do underscore TBL. That's the table. Okay. And what are the fields that will contain in the table? I have to use this guy. These are the fields that I'm going to put in the table. So I have to specify those columns that are going to be in my table, and which are those columns that I want to put. I want to put employee, and then I want to use employee name. So I'll call it employee name. And what kind of information is going to be contained in this column? Is going to be text. So then I'll call it info. And how many digits do I expect it to be? So I expect it to have maximum of 50 characters. So I'll put this guy and I'll put comma. Then I move on. I will add another column. I want to call it employee phone number. What kind of information is going to be contained here? It's going to be number, so I'll call it numeric. And how many digits do I expect? I shouldn't more than 11, so I specify 11. And then another one I expect is employee address. So I want to put the address of an employee. So I'll say employee address. What kind of information is going to be alphanumeric, letters and numbers? So I'll use NFAChat, because NFAChat can take numbers and then the letters. So this I want to use maximum because I can predict how long the test is going to be. Now kindly note, this is the last one that I want to have here. So I'm not going to put any comma. So I will run this guy, and this table will be created inside this database because I've made the database to be the active database. So once I execute this, you can see the command completed successively. And for me to see, to check whether the table has been created, so I can come here under my employee DB in the Server Explorer, Object Explorer rather. So I can go to the table to see whether I have the table there already. So you can see I have the table here already. And for me to see the content of this table we've created, we can use another command that is called select to see if I have records. So I can say select records. So I have how many records? All the records. So I have to use this symbol for all. Select all from which of the tables am I selecting it from? From my employee table. So I have to pick the one with table. And then once I run this, it's going to retrieve all the information that I have in that table. So unfortunately, we've not added any records, so it's showing us empty. So you can see the feed employee name, employee phone number, and employee address, but without any record because we've not added any record to it. There are ways you can retrieve with this select statement, retrieve specific record, specific column you want, but this is not going to be covered in this video. In the next video, we are going to talk about each of these statements, each of these commands. It's, explicitly we'll explore them very well. But since we said we are targeting the basic, this is just an introduction for you to, start with something in SQL. So we are going to limit it to this guy. So this is how you can actually see the record you have in the table. And this is how to retrieve all the information you have in the table. So this using the query. So let me quickly show you how you can also create this table using the GUI, because this one has demonstrated how you can create it using the query. So for me to create a table using the GUI, all I need is to go to my DB, and then under my DB, I will open, my DB is like this, employee DB. I'll click the plus sign. That is, I want to create object inside this DB. And what object do I want to create? I'll come to the table and I'll right click the table and I'll click the name and select table here. And it's going to, show me this particular face we are seeing, interface we are seeing. And here is where I have to, specify the columns that I want. So in my case, I want employee, I call it employee name. In the other one, and I'll say I want it to be manufacturer. You can see it's 50. And the second one is I call it employee phone number. I call it employee phone number. And then I said it should be numeric. And then I can change this to 11. And then the last one, I call it employee address. So I can have employee address. And I said it should be Enfaca maximum. So I can select this guy and I'll pick Enfaca maximum. So once I'm done with this, I can come to this save. Once I click save, I'll give the table name and I call it employee TBL. But for us to differentiate it from the one we created using the query, we'll add GUI to this. So we'll call it, we'll do OK. And once I do OK and I come back to my table, expand this table, you can see, let me refresh it, and I refresh this guy, it's going to show me, you can see. So this is the one we created using the query, and this is the one we created using the GUI. So that's how to create tables using both the GUI and the query. Okay, and for you to retrieve the information, this is how to retrieve the record or see all the content of the table by using the query. You select it and you run it, nothing is there. So I can also select it and check using the GUI. So if I want to retrieve the information or see the information that contained in my table using the GUI, all I need is to click on the table and right click and click select top 1000 rows. So it's going to show me, see, it has written the query for me and it's now showing me the record I have in my table. So that is how to also see the record in the table using the GUI. So now let's see how we can add record to our table since we don't have anything in the table at the moment. So with a statement called insert, you can actually add new records to the table. You can add a single record, you can add multiple records. So for now, we're going to start with adding single records. So if I want to add single record to my table, I'll use insert, and this is the syntax. Insert into the table. What's the name of my table? Is TBL. And what are the columns that are contained in my table? What are the columns that I have in the table? I have to specify those columns. So I have employee. The first one is employee name. I'll do comma. I also have employee phone number, I'll do comma, and I also have employee address. So which are the columns that I have? So I have to supply values for all these columns. So I'll say value, and what am I entering into this? So I want to do what are the values I'm adding to these particular tables. I have to specify those values I want to. For employee name, I want to add Busari Akim, and I need to surround it with single quote because it's a text. And I'll say I'm adding Akim Busari to this table as the name. So I have to specify the phone number as well. And what phone number? The phone number for this staff. So it's going to be 08132239143. And then I will add the address for this particular staff, and it will be surrounded with single quote. And then this staff lives in number 23, Usechu in Abuja. So that's the staff address. So if I run this query, it's going to add this record, Akin Busari, and then with a phone number, this, and lives who lives in this particular address to our table. But one thing which you know is if you look at it, I arrange the values the way I arrange the column. The name is there, the name is first, phone number is there, phone number is, and then followed by address, then followed by address. I can rearrange them anyhow I want it, but the value must tally with the position of the column that I specified in the insert statement. So you can see we've successfully added one record. One role is affected because I've added one person to this. So we can also add multiple values at the same time using a single, query. So if I want to add multiple values, all I need to do is to just copy this guy and then separate this guy with comma and then put this guy. You can see I didn't put values across all of them again. I only put for this last one. So for the first one, the other ones will not have. I'll put comma and I'll do this guy. Then I'll start editing them to reflect the name of the tab that I want. Okay. So that is how to add that. And then that is how to add, multiple staff or multiple records to the database using the SQL query. So, Elijah in Niger State. Niger State. So let's run this and see what we're going to have. So the difference between this and the first one I ran was that first one we only added a single value, which is this guy. But this time around now we're adding three staff at the same time, Salaudin, Danjuman, and Aisha Sake. So those are the people who want to add at the same time. So let me remove this guy because we've added this guy before, so that we're not going to add that again. And another thing you need to notice is, look, I only put the values here. I'm not putting value in front of every one of them. It's just the first one that has the value. So once I run this guy, and let's see, you can see how many rows are affected. See the result here. You see 3 rows affected. That means 3 people have been added, and we've added Salaudin, Danjuma Samsudin, Aisa Asake. We've added these 3 people to our record. Remember, we have only one record in the database before, in the table before, which is Bosari Akim. So when I come back here to see all the stuff, because this particular symbol represents all. That's all the record in the table. So if you want to retrieve the records we have in the table now, we'll use this select statement, and let's see, to see the record, to retrieve all the information from the tables, we'll come back to this query and then execute this guy. And you can see we now have 4 staff, 4 employee, 4 staff, 4 employee in the database. So look at it. The first one is Akimbo Salaudin, Kazim, Danjuma Samsudin, Aisha Sake, with their phone number and their different address. Okay. So let's see, if I want to add same person into this table, will SQL take it? Will it allow me to add the same person as in have the duplicate in this? Do we have anything that will stop the duplicate? No, we don't. So for you to avoid having same record or duplicate in your database, you need to have a field, that is a column, that you will call a primary key. And what the primary key is going to do is to assign a key or a number or something, that an ID that will uniquely identify every staff you have in your organization. It's very common in some part of the world, most especially in Nigeria. In Kano State, you can have 10 people in the same organization bearing the same name, Bello, Mohammed. Those are very common names. So just for you to know that this Mohammed is different from this other Mohammed, so you must have in your table an ID that will be assigned to each of the staff that will uniquely identify every member of staff you have in your organization. So to do that, you have to introduce in every table you are creating, there must be an ID in the table. And you have to specify that that ID is a primary key that, uniquely identify every other person. So I purposely leave it out when I'm creating the table. And for you to do that, you can actually modify this our table, and there's a command you can use to do that, which is called, alter. You can use an alter statement, yes, to modify the table and add the column you want to add to it. So, but before then, let's see how, if I'm trying to add the same set of people I've added, and let me see if, let me add one more person. Let me add this same person for another time. You see, I didn't change anything in the record. And once I executed, you see one role affected. So you are going to see this record duplicated. So let me run this guy and then execute. You can see we're having Akim, we're having Salaudin, causing 2 times Salaudin, and everything is the same. And the database is not complete because we didn't put our ID into our table, because the ID is the only thing that will uniquely identify them, and it's the ID that will not allow duplicates to be in your table. It will not allow same record to be repeated, but same ID will not be taken into your, even if they bear same name, at least the ID will differentiate them. Because it's possible you have one Bello staying in Abuja and another Bello staying in Niger State, but the two of them are bearing Bello. So how do you know the Bello staying in Abuja, and how do you differentiate from the Bello that stays in Niger? So you can actually use the ID to differentiate the two of them, okay? Because the problem here now is, if I want to remove this Salaudin cousin from this table, if I use delete and I say delete Salaudin from the table, it's going to delete the two Salaudins, and I should be able to differentiate the particular one that I want to delete. However, before then, we've seen how to use select statement, that is to retrieve records from the database. And I can also retrieve specific record that I want, but in that case, we have to use the where clause. But we said this is basic, so I don't want to make it complex. By the time we'll come back for each of the command, because I'm going to do a video on each of the command, how you can exploit it explicitly, how you can use them and select different thing you want to see. But this is basic. We're just running ourselves through the basics so that we can have a basic knowledge of SQL, then before we jump into the complex one. So far, we have seen how you can create a database using query, and we've also demonstrated how you can create a database using the GUI. I've also demonstrated how you can create table using the query, and how you can create table using the GUI. So I've also demonstrated how we can retrieve the record from the table using the query, which is select command, and how you can also fill the record in the table by using the GUI by right-clicking on the table and select edit the top rows. So we have also demonstrated how to insert records. That's the single record and multiple records at the same time using a single line of query into the tables. So we've also seen that. So how do I now, add record to my table without using query when I want to use the GUI? So that's what we're going to demonstrate. So for you to add record into the table using the GUI, all you need to do is to come to Object Explorer, look for the table where you want to add the record, right click the table and click edit top 20 rows, and you can see the employee name, you can see their phone number, and you can see the list of the records we have already in the table. So if I want to add anybody, I can come here. I will set as Caesar Busari. I'm trying to add another staff whose name is Aziza Busari, and a phone number is 070 454 231232. So, and the address. So I can just add number 16 or number 15, Owo Ni Koko Street, Ibadan. So we can have this guy. So once I click outside there, the record will be automatically saved into the table. So that's how to do it by clicking on the button. So if I come here to retrieve all the information I have again, just to show you that we have been able to successfully added a new record through the GUI. So if I execute this, you can see there's a Busari that we added through the GUI is now in our record. Now assuming while I'm typing, or it was a mistake that I added Salaudin cousin twice, because when you look at the information, it's the same thing. And instead of creating or adding a new staff, I want to edit one of these Salaudin to show somebody's else name, so that I'll change the name to someone else's name. How do I do that? So I need to use another command. And which command am I going to use? The command is called update command. So I can use update command to edit whatever existing record I have in the table or in the database. So let's use the update command and see how it works. So outside update, I've told you before, is not case sensitive. Update, what am I trying to update? The table I want to update. And what table am I updating? The employee TB. I can come here and type it and paste it, copy it and paste it. And if I don't want to do that, by the time I start typing employee, you can see it show me, but it's table I want to do, not the TB. So I'll select employee TBL. So you can see I want to update this. Update table, this, what am I doing? I'm setting, what am I setting? What do I want to change? For now, is the name I want to change. So I'll say change the employee name to, what am I changing it to? But the problem I'm going to have here is if I said, okay, change the employee name, and I pick Salaudin cousin, the two names will be affected because I'm not using an ID. But I can use the phone number anyway, because the phone number here uniquely identify each one of them. So I can say set employee name. I want to change this Salaudin name to something else. But look at the two. Even the phone number, the address is the same thing. So I can, anything I change there, it will affect the two of them because there's no ID on that. So let's use Akim Busari. Let's change the name of Akim Busari to maybe cousin Busari instead of Akim Busari. So I said update employee TV. So update this table and change the name. That's set employee name. Change the name to Kazim Busari. I need to surround this with single quote because it's a text. So I'll do single quotes. I'll do single quotes here. Let me just do this guy. I'll put this guy here. Let's change this to set name to this. So how is it going to know who among the staff whose name we want to change? I'll say where employee phone number, because if you look at it, it's the phone number that uniquely differentiates every one of them. I'll say where employee phone number is this guy. For this guy's phone name is this guy. Do you see it? It's a number. So he's going to come to this table, look for this column and change whatever name there to this guy. And how will he know the staff? He will look for a staff with this particular phone number and then change the name of that staff and then change the name of that staff to this guy inside this table. So let's run this query and see what happened. So if I run this query, see this record, Akim Busari, with this phone number. So we're using a command now. This is an update command. Like, look, update this table we have here. Change this, update this table. So update this table. We want you to update this table. And what do you want you to do? Is to change the record of this guy. I want you to change the record of this guy. Let me redo and I undo what I've done. So let me redo this guy. So this is it. We said update this table, change the name of the staff with this phone number to this name. So let's see what will happen. And I run this guy. you can see what role is affected. So it's telling me that it's just one staff that have changed the record. So let me run the table, this command, select retrieve, and see the record now. So when you look at this, you can see what we have now. You can see this the phone number of that guy who lives in Amino, whatever, and look at his name. His name has been changed to this guy. So you can use update command to change any or update the table, the records in the table. And look, we only change the name, but I can change so many things at the same time. How? Change the name to be this. Also change the address. So let's change the address. Let's say also change the employee address and let the address. What do we want to change the address to? So we want to change the address. I'll come here and pick the initial, whatever I want to change the address to, I'll put it. So he has relocated from Aminu Kano. He has joined Ibadan. So he road, and then he's no longer in Abuja. He has been transferred to Ibadan. So we use Ibadan. He's now in the road in Ibadan. So if you run this guy, you see one road is affected. So when we retrieve this record, we're going to see that it's now, see, Kazim Bozari, the name has been changed from Makim Bozari to Kazim Bozari, and he now lives in Ibadan, in the world. Okay, so far so good. We've seen how we can, update the existing record in the database, because the Akim Bozari was an existing record. He relocated from Abuja to Ibadan, so we have to change the address, and it's no longer bearing Akim Bozari. His name has been changed to Kazim Bozari. So we need to change the name and the address. So I first demonstrated how you can change a column, and I also demonstrated how you can change multiple columns using a single command in a database. So far so good. We have demonstrated how to use create statement, select statement, insert statement, and update statements. So these are things that are very important for beginners to understand, and they are requirements for you to learn or be on top of SQL. So for the update, you can also do that by clicking on the button. All I need to do is to come here. I will right click this at the top rows while I select the person I want to change to Kazim Bozari, and I can decide to change the name here. By changing this guy, I can say no, change it back to Akim Bozari, and I'll click outside there, and that solves my problem. And once I come back here to see the record in the table and I execute this guy, you can see the name has been updated. It has been changed to Akim Bozari from Kazim Bozari. So now you've learned and you've seen how you can also do the update by using query as well as using the GUI. Okay. Now let's see how we can remove some of the records from the table. When you need to have a reason to remove a record from the table or remove a data from the table, what you need to do is to use another command, and that command is called delete. So we use the delete. Delete, what am I deleting from which table am I deleting from? Employee, so employee TB. And what do I want? What am I deleting? I have to specify what I'm deleting. The danger here is if I say delete from this table, all the records in this table will be deleted by using this guy. So I have to be specific. Who do I want to delete? So I have to say who do I want to delete? I want to use the phone number to identify the person I want to delete. So I'll say where employee phone number is equals to, let me delete this Aladdin because it's the one causing employee phone number is equals to this guy. So I'm telling how many records we have at the moment? 6. But if I delete Salaudin, we have 2 Salaudin and they are both using the same phone number. This is the implication. So you need to use something that uniquely identify each of the staff so that if you are deleting a staff, that particular staff will be affected. If there are multiple people that are having that same thing you are using to delete them, all of them will be deleted. So now we have 6 records. You can see what is going to happen. And we have 2 Salaudin and their phone number is the same thing. So once I do delete using that phone number, everybody using that phone number will be removed from my table. So let's run this guy and see what happens. You see, 2 records affected, 2 rows affected. Because we have 2 Salaudin and they are using the same number. So the 2 of them has been removed. If it is one person that is having that number, it will go. If it is 10 million people that is affected using the same phone number, all of them will be deleted. So what it means is you can remove people's record, maybe Ibadan people, all the staff in Ibadan you want to delete or you want to do anything with their record, you can easily do by specifying their location. So if I come back here using this to retrieve the information I currently have in my table, you can see our information, the content has been reduced to 4 because the Salaudin is no longer there. We deleted it. So that is how to use the delete command to remove data or record from the table. And if by mistake I remove this where clause, I didn't say specifically where and what I want to delete. And I say delete, you'll see what will happen to my records. You can see 4 rows are affected. So if you're a database administrator, you need to understand SQL commands very well so that you not go and give a wrong, instruction to the database. Because the moment you click it will be affected. Now imagine I'm working in the bank and I'm asked to delete a specific record of a specific customer. But instead of me to use where clause in my delete statement, I didn't. I just say delete from the transaction. It means everybody's transaction history will be disappeared and I will run into trouble. So by the time I come back here, you see, after running this query, if I come to this guy, you will see there is no content in my table. Everything, all the records we have has mistakenly been deleted. So don't use delete. You have to be careful whenever you're using update statements and the delete statement. Because if you forget to add this where clause, all the record in the table will be affected. So now you can see when I say delete from this guy, and I didn't specify whose record should be deleted. Every record in the table has been deleted. Now there is another command we need to note, which is very, very important. When I use delete is to delete the contents of the table, not the table itself. But we have another command that we can use to delete the entire table, both the structure and the contents at the same time, which is called drop. If I use drop is going to delete both the structure of the table and the content. That means it's going to remove the table even from here. So let me use drop to drop this other table because we've not been using drop. What do I want to drop? Drop table, which of the table I want to drop? Employee 2. Let me drop this guy too. I'm not using this guy. Okay, so let me just to show you. I want to drop this, not the DB. Okay, you can use it to drop the database. Let's see what happens. When I say drop, cannot drop, yes, because this is a database, it's not DB. So let me select the table. Is drop employee DB, this guy. I want to drop this guy. So once I say drop this guy, you can see command completed successful. You see it here. So once I come back to this table and I refresh this guy, I'm not going to see the table has been deleted. So the structure and the content will be deleted if you use drop. But if you use delete, it only affects the content. That's different. That's the message I'm trying to pass to us. Okay. And then you can also use it to drop database. I've dropped the table for you. So let me show you how you can use that same drop to drop the entire database. And if you drop the database, it means all the content, all the objects attached to that database will be dropped as well. So I can say drop the DB. I have employee DB, the one I also created using the GUI. Can you see this now? So this is what I want to drop. I want to drop them. I want to drop this database. So if I have any table or few of store procedure in this, everything will go. So once I say drop this guy, so it's going to drop that database. It's running and it's taking time, It's running and it's taking time. It might return an error, but let's see what will happen. And then we'll move from there. So the bottom thing is what I want you to understand is delete the contents of from the table, while drop will drop whatever you want to drop. You can see cannot drop this DB because it's currently in use. So we are using it, so he refused to drop it because so I have to close it so that I'll be able to drop it. Now let's see. Lastly, the last thing I'm going to do here is to show you how you can actually modify the table. You understand? So we have here how many columns we have? We have name, phone number, and email address. Assuming I want to add recruited date when an employee joined our office, and it's important I want to add it to this table, and I've created my table already, which has 3 columns. But we now discover that we didn't put the date created. That's the date the employee joined the office, and we want to change the structure. We want it to have that. So there's another command I can use, which is called alter. So I can use this statement to alter my table. What am I altering? Alter table. Which of the table I want to alter? That's altering table. I want to alter this table. Alter table. This you can see. And how do I add? What am I adding? Column. And what's the name of it? What do I want to call the column? I want to call it joined date or created date. Let me call it joined date. And what format is going to be? Going to be a date format. So incorrect syntax near add column. What happened to my column? Okay, add this guy. Yeah, this is the table. Then I wanted to add this guy. So you can see the command completed successful. So when I come back here and look at the structure of my table, you will discover that that particular column has been added to the table. You can see we have employee name, phone number, employee address, and we have join date. Now, if I also want to add an ID that will uniquely identify this guy, so that two people will not be, having the same thing. So I can come here and say add. And what do I want to add? I want to add an ID. So I'll say employee. I can call it employee ID. This is going to be integer. It's going to be a number that will uniquely identify each and every one of them. And I want it to be primary key. When I said primary key, it should be something that uniquely identify all of them. And I don't want it to be not. I don't want it to contain empty value, not no. So if I use not no, I'm going to have issue because the table is created already. This is a column that should have added from the beginning. The lecture you can see is completed. Okay, it's successfully completed. So we have it. So when I go back and select to see all the records, all the things that I have in the table now, and I do this guy, you can see it. Okay, and I have employee ID. So we've used alter statements to add the employee ID to our table. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial, to the end of today's lecture. Before, let me quickly recap. But before I recap, please share my videos, like my video, and drop your comments so that it will help me to do more. And please subscribe to my channel. Encourage me so that I'll be able to do more. Okay, and always visit my channel to learn more about digital skills. So please, I believe you've subscribed already, and let me quickly recap what we have done. So what we have done today is we've seen how we can create database using create command, how we can create table using create command, and how we can actually do that too using the GUI, graphical user interface, by clicking of a button. We've also discussed how we can retrieve record from the table, how we can retrieve record from the table by using select statement. And I've also demonstrated to us how we can view the content of our table using the button click. We've also demonstrated how we can add new record into the tables, how we can by using insert statement, and I've also shown us how you can insert a single record into the table and how we can insert multiple records into the table at the same time. Okay, and then I've also demonstrated to us, we've also learned about update statement, that is how to edit or modify the existing record in our table. And I've also demonstrated how we can edit single column and how we can edit multiple columns in the record by using update. We've also demonstrated how we can remove a record from the table by using the delete statement, and both the query and the GUI, we've also seen how we can do that. Then we've also demonstrated how we can drop the entire table, that's the structure and the content, and how we can modify the table we have by adding additional column or by removing a particular column. So thank you very much. And the next video after this is going to be doing all these things we have done, but using AI to do it for us. So AI can actually generate all these commands. So you don't have to give yourself a headache or worried about how you can write all these queries, we can actually use AI to write the query for us. And all you need is to copy it, paste it here, and execute it, and you have your database and the record inserted, database created, and the record manipulated. So thank you, but please subscribe to my channel for further notification and to encourage me, like and share my videos if you enjoy the video. Thank you, and I'm saying bye till